Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. Today we're going to be talking about Sigma. We've done quite a few videos going over tips on how to play him, how good he is in the overall sense, but today I really wanted to focus on a pretty scary combo that people have been talking about, Orisa and Sigma. On that subject we'll be going over some of the other good combinations between Sigma and the rest of the cast, and just talking about Barrier Watch, which very much could become a meta if Orisa and Sigma become popular. Chrono has also racked in a lot of hours on Sigma. He will go over quickly how many he's got so far, but if you are interested in a new hero or playing main tank, do check him out. His details are in the description below. We did a video recently talking to Yeatle about how good Sigma is. If anybody's clocked in more time than him right now, it's probably you. How many hours have you got in Sigma so far right now?
Oh man, if you count quick play and ranked, probably about 60 hours actually in-game.
What do you think of him then? Because Yeatle rated him currently quite undertuned, but he felt that if Blizzard sorted out some of his issues, he could be a really good option. Maybe not super meta, but really good to run. What do you think of him?
Yeah, so right now my opinion on Sigma is that if he's left uncontested to do whatever he wants, he's incredibly strong, like probably one of the strongest tanks in the game. But the problem comes when he starts being contested, right? So when people start pressuring him. The big problem with Sigma is that he's relatively squishy for a tank. So it's really easy for him to get dove or to get speed boosted on by the enemy team. On top of that, right now in the current meta, at least in ranked, we see a decent amount of Symmetra being played, which is really weird, but in a lot of ranked games I've seen it. And Symmetra actually almost like hard counters Sigma, because Sigma's kinetic grasp, his shift ability, doesn't block lasers. So if a Sim just walks up to Sigma, holds left click, Sigma's probably dead. But yeah, mainly I just feel like he's a little bit too squishy as a main tank, and he can just get run over.
What about his abilities and stuff too? Because they've been described by Yeatle as being quite clunky. Do you agree with that at all?
Well, the only ability that I say would feel clunky in my opinion is the accretion, the rock throw. Because the cast time is actually fairly long. And by the time that you try to cast it, there's a good chance you're already going to be dead, or that you're going to be in a very bad position. A problem with that is also that when you cast the rock, you actually are very slow. Your movement speed drops to almost nothing. So that also, again, goes back to the problem of Sigma being easy to run over. But yeah, aside from that, like left click, I feel like the left click is not too bad. It's definitely a unique ability, but it feels completely good in my opinion. The shield, I think, is completely fine. I see why people say that the shield is clunky, but at the end of the day, I feel like it has to be clunky or it might be a little bit OP. Being able to like instantly deploy a shield every single time, you know? Because you could block every single cooldown in the game.
What do you think is going to happen when Sigma gets added into competitive?
So right now, I think Sigma's good on PTR because people don't swap. But when he actually goes on the live patch and people are playing for their SR, I think that people are going to start swapping to dive or like super aggressive bunker comps with a Lucio. And they're just going to begin speed boosting or diving onto the Sigma. So because I think he's actually not going to be very good on the live patch when he first comes out.
And is that going to change over time? Like, we've seen some heroes come into the game and being very good. Like, I think Baptiste was an example of a hero that just came in and he was fine. But then you have like Wrecking Ball, who is a perfect example of a hero that people said wasn't very good to begin with, didn't want to play in competitive, and then gradually over time people showed how good and effective he can be used, and thus grew in popularity. So is he going to be more of a Wrecking Ball in that case than a Baptiste?
Yeah, it's... Now that you mention that, he's going to be more like... Actually, I actually don't think he's going to be like either of them. It's going to be one of those characters where he feels really good on release, but he's going to get worse as time progresses, right? Because as the character's in the game longer, people are going to find out more ways to counter them, right? Like I said, Sigma right now is really good when he's uncontested. But when he gets contested, everything gets quite problematic. So because he's going to be good at launch, but then once people start countering him, he is going to be very bad, in my opinion. At least with the current state of how he is.
The reason why I wanted to bring this up is I saw a couple of Reddit threads poking up over the course of last month, talking about how they're a little bit scared of Orisa Sigma and that combination. So could you run through why exactly Orisa Sigma has a lot of people quaking in their boots as a combo?
Okay, so Orisa Sigma is good because there's so much shield break. It basically allows Sigma to utilize his massive like burst potential, right? Because Sigma is really good at bursting down targets, but you'd rather not be shooting shields, right? So because I think Orisa actually enables Sigma to take more aggressive off angles or to actually go in and deal damage. So because of that, it's really good. Also, if you're not going to run Sigma Orisa, you're probably going to be running the Orisa Hog combo, right? And like we talked about before in a previous video, that the Maywall ends up countering the Hog Hook much of the time. So if you're not going to get if you're not going to get value from Roadhog, you might as well swap Sigma and use that shield break, right? And that big damage. So because of that, I think that Sigma Orisa is actually going to be fairly good. But again, he still falls into the same trap, right? Where he's easy to get speed boosted on or just to get dove. So that, like, crux is still there.
But I guess that's the same as Orisa, so that's why she's built in a way that Orisa wants to keep distance between her and the enemy team, so I guess that's another reason why Sigma likes playing alongside her, because Orisa can make sure that people can't dive him as well.
Well, it's actually a little bit different though, right? So if somebody dives Orisa, Orisa can use Fortify and survive for a long time. So Sigma has a similar ability, right? The Kinetic Grasp. The problem is that it only blocks projectiles and like hit scan and stuff. It doesn't actually block like melees or lasers, anything like that, or beams. So Sigma's shift is actually significantly worse than Orisa's. And because that, Sigma is much easier to dive.
He hasn't got any armor, for example, like in comparison
Yeah,
to
exactly. Like you said, 400
else.
HP, no armor. He's incredibly squishy.
Before we go over good combinations with Sigma and other people, are there any combinations with Sigma that people might feel is very good, but isn't?
Yeah, so I actually feel like a lot of people think that Reinhardt Sigma is pretty good. And on the surface, it makes a little bit of sense, right? Because you can throw out your shield as Sigma and just have your Reinhardt swing from behind the shield. But I think in the grand scheme of things that Reinhardt Sigma is not going to be very good. But yeah, that's a big one. Aside from that, I could see Sigma Hammond being played. There's definitely a time and a place for that. I could see, for example, Sigma Zarya being played, or even Sigma Diva, or maybe even Sigma Roadhog sometimes. But I don't see Winston Sigma being very good.
You mentioned time and a place for Wrecking Ball and Sigma. When is that time and place?
So this actually like requires a little bit of understanding of the meta, right? So before the 2-2-2 lock, in Overwatch League we saw a lot of like triple and quad DPS comps to basically counter Ghost comps and stuff like that. Well, I think we're actually going to see something similar with Sigma. So Hammond is going to be, you know, the mobile, obviously mobile main tank like we saw in the quad DPS comps. And then you're going to have two spammy DPS, right? Like let's say a Pharah and a Hanzo. And then you can just have your Sigma anchoring the point while your Pharah, Hanzo, and Hammond go in and wreak havoc across the map. And then let's say that they try to push you, like they try to push onto Sigma, you just back up and retreat with your shields, right? By constantly re-shielding backwards. Because again, that portable shield is really good for disengaging and taking flanks.
You sort of raised a point there that's quite interesting, that Sigma seems to slot in really well with a former bunker comp, and this kind of triple DPS dive, even in like a 2-2-2 lock. Do you feel that Sigma can play in effectively any meta? Or are there any like combinations and already any other like metas like Dive or Reinhardt Zarya that you feel Sigma couldn't take part in?
Well, I feel like right now Sigma is actually relatively niche in the sense that like I feel like you can play Sigma in bunker meta, for example. That's one place where I'd say he would excel. Another place I could see him excelling, for example, is against double sniper. Because he's able to block, you know, all sniper damage with his kinetic grasp if he ever gets stuck in the open. Also, he has that like portable shield, and he can cut off sightlines from the snipers just by shielding them. So I feel like in bunker and against double sniper, Sigma's pretty good. But if you start looking at how Sigma's going to be played in sort of like a dive-based meta, like I said, I don't think it's going to be very good. Because Sigma has very little mobility, his shift ability doesn't protect him that much against dives, and on top of that, he only has 400 HP, none of which is armor. So yeah, because of that, I would say definitely don't play him in dive.
Are you happy with him as a hero? Is he kind of everything that you wanted in the game, or would you have preferred a different type of tank being added into Overwatch in his stead?
Oh man, for me, Sigma is like the perfect tank to come into the game. I really like how Sigma has a very high skill cap compared to other main tanks, especially when it comes to mechanics, when it comes to landing those left clicks and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like basically like what Yudo said, I think is a little bit underpowered at the moment, but time will tell. I would rather that he stays the way he is now until we find out for sure that he's underpowered, instead of just randomly buffing him and he ends up like one-shotting everybody, you know?
Like Anna way back when.
Yeah, with the 4 bullets.
Yeah, somewhat ridiculous. I guess, are there any other things that you want to say about the hero? Because I feel like the excitement surrounding him is very much just gone. I feel like when he came out and people kind of tested him and went, oh, this is cool, and then sort of stopped bothering with him. Kind of felt a bit like Ashe when she was added, and maybe to an extent Orisa when she was added way back when. What's your vibe? Do you think that people should be taking him a lot more seriously as an option?
Well, right now, because of the bunker-based meta, I do think that people should be considering him a lot more than they are right now. But that being said, I can see exactly why a lot of people don't enjoy playing him necessarily, or why they think he's bad. Because again, like Yudo said, for the most part, the character does feel a little bit clunky. And he feels a little bit useless when he's just shooting shields. And I think a lot of it is actually like people not understanding the character. Not so much that the character is bad. So for example, people are playing him as if like he's a barrier tank, like a second Orisa, for example. Whereas instead he should be more of like a flanking Orisa. In that way. Where you go on the flank, you deal damage. If they push you, you start re-shielding backwards to disengage from the flank. So I think people are just like fundamentally misplaying him right now.
So just to sort of recap, the Orisa Sigma combination is the one that's been brought up the most, I feel, when it comes to Sigma being added into the game. Should people fear it as much as the internet may be going on about it?
Well, well, first off, to preface that, I do think that Sigma Orisa is like the best combo Sigma at the moment. So if you're going to be afraid of one Sigma comp, then this is definitely the one. But I don't think it's going to be absolutely broken either, to be entirely honest. Because like I said, this all comes back to the crux of Sigma. No matter how good he is in certain situations, if the enemy swaps dive or they go for an aggressive comp with a Lucio, it's going to be really, really hard to actually hold your ground as Sigma. So it really all ties back to that. But yeah, this is the best Sigma comp if you can play uncontested.
I guess that's another thing to go into, actually, before we finish, is I think one way that it's been described, other than scary, is obnoxious because of the amount of shields that a reset Sigma can have. I was going to ask if you think that that's a problem, that it's just becoming barrier watch more than anything, but like you just mentioned, you just go dive in that case. So do you think it's obnoxious? Because it feels like there's elements that you can play around it, because you can't win the shield break battle, but you can switch to other stuff because of that, right?
Yeah, so funny you asked that, because before we were talking about meta and whether meta matters in low ranks, right? For example, if you're playing in Sigma, if you're playing Sigma in high rank, people are going to swap the dive to counter you, right? It's fairly obvious. High rank players know that you should swap. But imagine being a low rank player and you see an Orisa and Sigma on the enemy team. Most low rank players aren't going to decide to swap. They're not going to say, oh, swap dive, it counters that, right? Most of them are just going to keep trying to shoot the shields. So in that sense, I can actually see Orisa Sigma being very unfun to play against. Just because if your teammates don't swap, it is literally going to be exactly what you said, barrier watch.
So it's almost going to be cheese, like very much OG cheese with like Torbjorn Bastion on. Because I can imagine Orisa Sigma Bastion as like a last-ditch first point hold, actually being really strong in lower ranks.
That's actually a good point. I like how you brought up the cheese, because yeah, cheese is sort of like, there's a pretty like calculated way to counter most cheese comps. Like people know how to counter cheese. It's just a matter of, are you actually going to counter it, right? Are you actually going to make those swaps that you need to make? And I think in the case of Sigma and Orisa, people are going to be very slow to make those changes to their team composition.
So the combination itself, just in conclusion, this combination is the best combo that Sigma can have with any of the other tanks. It's not scary in the sense of it could become very meta, certainly not in the higher tiers, but it will become very obnoxious to deal with in lower ranks because it's quite cheesy, like a Bastion, like a Torbjorn, like that kind of stuff. And you would recommend switching to dive in order to counter it, which if they have a Bastion or a Torbjorn might actually be quite difficult too.
Yeah, okay, true. Yeah, if you play Sigma Orisa with a Bastion and a Torb, that's actually the ultimate cheese comp. You just came up with the best idea in all of Overwatch.
Amazing. So I guess now that we've created this nightmare, what would you recommend to people trying to go against it?
That's a hard one, right? Because we haven't had the opportunity to actually play against it yet. But I still do think it's some sort of dive comp, right? Because if you're playing a Bastion and a Torbjorn, and a Orisa and a Sigma, like that in itself is 4 characters that aren't very good at peeling for themselves, right? That they can't peel for each other. So my best advice off the top of my head would just be to play a lot of DPS and play like in multiple angles, right? Like have, for example, if you want to play double sniper, put your Hanzo on top left, your Widow on top right, for example. Just get multiple angles. That or just go for a full out dive with the D.Va. You probably need the D.Va because of the Bastion for the defense matrix.
Or maybe Reinhardt, Zarya, Lucio and just run at them?
Ooh. Yeah, that might be kind of hard though because of the Bastion.
Maybe. I mean, all you really need to do is get one pick maybe in that situation. Pray that they don't have a Mercy res.
Yeah, I think time will tell, because this is actually going to be very interesting to see how it pans out if people actually do start running the comp.
Any final things that you want to go over with this like Orisa Sigma combination, or what you can see happening to Sigma in the next 3 months, going up to BlizzCon?
As soon as he is competitive, I think his win rate is going to be maybe in the 40%, like 45%. Just because it's basically a combination of things, right? People not knowing how to play Sigma properly, basically just playing him as like a frontline shield tank. And then on top of that, just the fact that he's relatively easy to counter, like I said, in terms of just engaging on him. So, yeah, I don't think his pick rate is... Sorry, because he's a new character, I think it'll have a pretty high pick rate, but low win rate.
and gradually that pick rate is just going to drop down. Probably over time that win rate is going to go up. It's just going to level out over time.
Yeah, exactly. If he does get buffed though in terms of survivability, I could see him being picked way more often.
What would you say to those that are wanting to play Sigma as his new main when competitive comes out for him?
Well, I mean, first off, I'm definitely one of those people, right? I'm going to be playing Sigma all the way when he comes out. But just one of those things where you have to acknowledge that maybe sometimes you're going to have to make a swap here and there. Just because, you know, Sigma does get countered by those things that we talked about before. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate though. He's a fun character. He has a lot of offensive potential. Because if you do the accretion and left click combo, that's instant 200 damage. And people just die. And also his burst damage is crazy if you get on the flank. So I'd say definitely give it a shot. But make sure you try to play him a little bit more as like a flanker. Trying to stay more at like medium distance if possible.
And where can people see you playing him? No doubt giving tips as you go along. Where can people see you playing the new hero?
Yes, I actually stream 5 days a week on twitch.tv/chronodota. Usually starting at about noon PST and going for 5 or 6 hours. Also, I make educational Overwatch content on YouTube, which is also at Chronodota. Also have my Instagram if you want to ask me questions there, as well as my Discord and Twitter. All of those are at Chronodota.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. You can check out all of Chrono's details in the description below if you want to see some Sigma gameplay when the new season rolls around, but also if you're just interested in main tanks or learning a thing or two. Definitely recommend him. Thanks for watching, take care, we'll see you next time.